So I'll give you a minute to explain why U.S. taxpayers should be required to pay the travel expenses of criminals who aren't allowed to be. Why should we pay to import felons?
Well, basically, in the broader sense, the reason I support this act is because what it does is it affords due process to undocumented people, which is, as you know, guaranteed by the Constitution and recent Supreme Court rulings. It affords them an individual assessment of their case and also provides them for an opportunity for judicial review. Now, that's where what you're talking about comes in, where you have people who may have been deported under the 1996 Immigration Act for reasons that now, but if this act passed, would be found lacking in their due process or in the way the case was handled. No one is requiring that they would be allowed to come back to the country at taxpayer expense. What would happen is they would be eligible to apply to return to the United States. Thereby, their case would go back to the judge who originally handled their case. That judge would have discretion whether or not they would allow some type of review, of reconsideration of the case, which would then potentially result in
let me just correct you. Having read the bill, let me just tell you that it would establish a right of those criminal aliens to be brought back by the U.S. government, by American taxpayers, to be brought back. It's their right, it says. We would
That is the name of the name of the section is right to return. That is indeed the name of the section.
Right.
I think it's section 7.
Right.
Correct. What it really means is the right to apply for a return. That is in the language of the bill.
Well, and then hold on, and then it's clear we would pay for it. So I'm just asking you, what percentage of Americans think that someone deported for a felony should be not only allowed to come back, but subsidized in the return? I mean, why would we import felons? It's a sincere question.
Right.
Who's this for?
Well, there's two reasons, in my view. Number one is the cost factor. The amount of people who would be potentially eligible for this type of government-sponsored or taxpayer-sponsored return to the country could likely, we don't know. I think it's very small compared to the number of people that we currently have at our taxpayer expense, at government expense, in deportation in detention centers, in deportation proceedings, and clogging our immigration courts.
Hold on. These are people I mean, with respect, these are people who are already living in their home countries.
My second reason has to do with the felonies that you referenced. Right. My second reason has to do with these felonies. Our Supreme Court recently ruled, just in 2018, in DeMaio, Sessions versus DeMaio, that people who have been removed from the country or in danger of removal because of aggravated felonies, the Supreme Court ruled on constitutional grounds that terminology was too broad and too vague, and that these potential deportees were entitled to a review.
This is legislation. It's not a Supreme Court decision.
Right. But this is
trying to bring our law. We're going to stay on this because I think it's the most destructive thing I've ever seen. Mr. Reyes, we're out of time, but we appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
I hope that we'll see you again. Thank you.
Likewise.